Started like a normal argument. Nothing new. Zainab was standing in the middle of the living room, her hands slightly shaking, trying to explain herself. Farouk was already irritated, his voice louder than usual. "You always do this," he snapped. Zainab tried to stay calm, speaking softly, hoping things wouldn't get worse like before. But this time felt different. The tension in the room kept rising. Every word turned sharper, heavier. Farouk stepped closer, his anger clear on his face. Zainab's heart started beating faster. She could feel it, something was about to go very wrong. "Just listen to me," she said quietly. But he didn't. In one sudden moment, Farouk lost control. His hand came out of nowhere and hit her. Everything went silent. Zainab didn't even move. It was like time just stopped. The sound echoed in her ears, but the room itself felt dead quiet. She slowly touched her face, not even fully understanding what just happened. Farouk stepped back, breathing heavily, but saying nothing. And Zainab, she just stood there, frozen. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. Not yet. It wasn't just the pain, it was the realization. The truth she couldn't ignore anymore. The man she trusted had just crossed a line that could never be undone. In that moment, something inside her broke, and something else woke up. Because deep down she knew, her life would never be the same after this night. Zainab didn't say a single word after that. The room still felt heavy, like the air itself had turned cold. Farouk was somewhere behind her, pacing, maybe thinking of what to say. But she didn't turn around. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. Not yet. Slowly, like her body was moving on its own, she walked into the bedroom. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was suddenly very clear. She opened the closet and pulled out a small bag. Not everything, just the important things. Few clothes, her documents, her phone charger, the little things that meant survival. Every second felt loud, even though the house was silent. She paused for a moment, looking around the room. This was supposed to be her home, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place she needed to escape from. Zainab picked up her bag, took a deep breath and walked out. She didn't look at Farouk. She didn't wait for him to stop her. And maybe the most shocking part, he didn't. The door opened quietly, and then it closed behind her. Outside the night was still. The streets were almost empty, the air slightly cold against her skin. For a moment she just stood there, holding her bag tightly, like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Her heart was racing now, not from fear, but from the reality of what she had just done. She had left, no plan, no warning, no goodbye. She quickly found a ride and gave only one address. Her parents' house, in Kano's old district. As the car moved through the quiet streets, Zainab leaned her head against the window. The city lights blurred in her eyes, but her thoughts were sharp, repeating the same line over and over again. "I can't go back. Not after tonight. Not after what he did." Tears finally started falling, silently, one after another. But this time they weren't just from pain. They were from the truth she had finally accepted. That staying would destroy her, but leaving might save her. And for the first time in a long time, even through the fear and uncertainty, Zainab chose herself. The car finally stopped in front of the old house. Zainab looked at it for a moment, her chest rising and falling fast. This place, it felt familiar, safe, but tonight it also felt heavy. Like everything she had been holding in was about to break the moment she stepped inside. She paid the driver, stepped out, and stood in front of the door. Her hand lifted slowly, and knocked, once, then again. The sound echoed in the quiet night. For a few seconds nothing happened, but to Zainab it felt like forever. Her fingers tightened around her bag, her eyes already filled with tears she was still trying to hold back. Then the door opened. Her mother, Safiya, stood there. The moment their eyes met, everything became clear. Safiya didn't ask, "What happened?" She didn't need to. A mother always knows. Her eyes quickly scanned Zainab's face. The fear, the pain, the silent tears waiting to fall. And in that instant her expression changed. Not to shock, not to confusion, but to understanding. "Zainab," she whispered softly. That was all it took. Zainab's lips trembled, but no words came out. Before anything else could be said, a calm but strong presence appeared behind Safiya. Al-Haji Karim. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He simply stepped forward, opened the door wider, and gently took Zainab's bag from her hand. "Come inside," he said quietly. His voice was steady, controlled, but full of something deeper. Protection. Zainab walked in slowly, like her body was finally giving up after holding itself together for too long. The moment she crossed that door, something inside her cracked. This wasn't fear anymore. This was release. Safiya closed the door behind her and immediately wrapped her arms around her daughter. Zainab didn't hold back this time. The tears came fast, heavy, unstoppable. She held on to her mother like she was afraid to fall apart completely. Still, no one asked questions. No pressure. No interrogation. Just silence. Safe silence. Al-Haji Karim stood in front of her, his face calm but his eyes sharp, observant. He looked at her for a moment, then spoke just one sentence. "You're safe now." And somehow, those 3 words did what nothing else could. They slowed her heartbeat. They quieted the storm in her chest. They made her feel protected. For the first time since that moment in the living room, Zainab wasn't scared anymore. Farouk had always believed one thing about Zainab's family, that they were simple, quiet, powerless. In his mind, they were just ordinary people from an old part of Kano. No influence, no connections, no real power. He never said it directly, but it showed in the way he spoke, the way he dismissed them, the way he never bothered to truly know them. Especially her father, Al-Haji Karim. To Farouk, he was just an old man who stayed in the background. Calm, soft-spoken, always respectful. The kind of man you don't pay much attention to. The kind of man you think you can easily overlook. And that was his biggest mistake. Because what Farouk never understood was that real power doesn't always make noise. Al-Haji Karim wasn't loud. He didn't show off. He didn't need to. Behind that calm voice and simple appearance was a man people knew very well. A man who had spent years building not just a business, but a name. A reputation that carried weight in rooms Farouk had never even entered. In Kano, especially in the old district, his name meant something. People respected him. Not the loud, fake kind of respect. The real kind. The kind where conversations lower when you walk into a room. The kind where people listen carefully when you speak. The kind where even powerful men choose their words wisely around you. And some people quietly feared him too. Not because he was cruel, but because he was precise. He didn't act out of anger. He acted with purpose. And when he moved, things changed. Farouk never saw any of this. He only saw what he wanted to see. A quiet father. Simple home. A family he thought he could control through Zainab. He thought if anything ever went wrong, Zainab would have nowhere strong enough to stand. Nowhere powerful enough to protect her. But what he didn't realize was that Zainab didn't run away in fear that night. She ran straight into a place built on strength he could never understand. And the man he ignored all this time was the one person he should have been most careful about. The next morning felt quiet, almost too quiet. Zainab was sitting in her parents' house, wrapped in a kind of calm she hadn't felt in a long time. Her eyes were tired, her body still heavy from everything that happened, but something inside her had shifted. Then her phone started ringing. She looked at the screen. Farouk. For a few seconds she just stared at it. Her heart didn't race this time. Her hands didn't shake like last night. It was different now. Slowly she picked up the call. "Hello." Her voice was low, steady. On the other side, Farouk sounded normal. Too normal. "Zainab," he said almost casually, like nothing had really happened. "Where are you?" There was no apology in his tone. No concern. Just control. She stayed silent. He sighed, slightly annoyed. "Look, just come back home. Don't make this bigger than it is." Zainab's fingers tightened around the phone. "Bigger than it is." He continued, his voice carrying that same confidence, that same belief that he was still in charge. "It was just a moment. These things happen. You don't need to run to your parents every time." Every time. The words hit differently. Like he had already decided this wasn't serious. Like what he did was normal, like she was overreacting. "You know you can't stay there forever," he added. "Just come back. We'll talk." But this wasn't a request. It was an expectation. Because in Farouk's mind, Zainab was still the same woman, the one who depended on him, the one who would calm down, feel guilty, and return like nothing ever happened. He was so sure of it, so confident, so comfortable. And that was the problem. Because while he was speaking like everything was still under his control, he had no idea that everything had already changed. Zainab closed her eyes for a moment, listening to his voice, but feeling nothing now. No fear, no confusion, just clarity. Last night she left as someone broken, but this morning, she was not the same person anymore. Farouk was still talking, still trying to sound in control. But for the first time, he wasn't. That same morning, while everything looked calm on the outside, Al-Haji Karim had already started moving. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show anger. He didn't even speak much about what happened the night before. But his silence was not weakness. It was focus. He sat in his study, the door slightly closed, his expression calm but serious. Zainab hadn't even fully processed everything yet, but her father already had. For him, this wasn't just about one slap. This was about protection and consequences. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Connect me to them," he said simply. No long explanation, no emotions, just a clear instruction. Within hours, his legal team was involved. Not just any lawyers. People who understood how to move quietly, how to dig deep, how to find things others try to hide. Farouk thought he knew control. But this was a different level of control. They started with the basics. His business, his partnerships, his financial records. First, everything looked normal, clean, organized. But Al-Haji Karim didn't stop at normal. "Look deeper," he said calmly. And they did. Slowly, things started to come out. Small inconsistencies. Unexplained transactions. Deals that didn't fully add up. More. Hidden debts that were never mentioned. Questionable partnerships with people known for cutting corners. Shortcuts taken in business that crossed ethical lines. Nothing loud. Nothing obvious. But enough to build a picture. A very dangerous picture. Every new detail added weight to the situation. Piece by piece, Farouk's image, the confident, in-control man, started to crack behind the scenes. And the most important part, Farouk had no idea. He was still making calls, still speaking with that same arrogance, still thinking this was just a small issue that would pass. While behind him, the ground was quietly shifting. Al-Haji Karim didn't rush. He didn't react emotionally. He observed. He calculated. And he prepared. Because when a man like him moves, he doesn't just respond. He changes the entire game. And Farouk was already losing it. By afternoon, Farouk had already made up his mind. Calling wasn't working the way he expected. Zainab wasn't responding the way she used to. No fear. No begging. No soft excuses. That irritated him. So he decided to go there himself. He drove straight to her parents' house, still holding on to that same confidence. In his mind, this was simple. He would show up, talk a little, maybe act slightly concerned, and Zainab would come back with him. Just like always. He stepped out of the car and walked toward the door like he belonged there. He didn't hesitate. He knocked once, firm and sure. The door opened, but the moment he stepped inside, something felt off. The house was quiet. Not the normal kind of quiet. A heavy kind of silence. The kind that makes you aware of every step you take. Farouk's eyes moved around the room, expecting to see Zainab rush out, maybe emotional, maybe confused. But she didn't. Instead, he saw her sitting calmly in the corner. No panic, no tears. Just watching him. That alone made him pause. Then he felt it. Presence behind him. Strong. Steady. He turned. Al-Haji Karim was standing there. Calm as ever. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. Not softness. Authority. "Sit," he said, his voice low but firm. It wasn't a suggestion. For the first time, Farouk hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough to feel the shift. Still, he forced a small smile, trying to stay in control. "I'm just here to take my wife home," he said casually, like this was all a misunderstanding. No one responded. That silence started to feel uncomfortable. Al-Haji Karim stepped closer, his movements slow, controlled. "Your wife is not going anywhere," he said calmly. The words landed heavy. Farouk let out a short laugh, trying to brush it off. "Sir, with respect, this is between me and her." Al-Haji Karim looked directly at him. "No," he replied quietly. "You made it my business the moment you raised your hand on my daughter." The room went still. Farouk felt it then. That confidence he walked in with started slipping. He tried to speak again, but his voice didn't sound as strong as before. It was just a misunderstanding, but even he could hear it. It didn't sound convincing anymore. Zainab was still sitting there, silent, watching everything. And for the first time, Farouk wasn't in control of the room. He was standing in it, and slowly, he was losing it. The room stayed silent for a few seconds, but it didn't feel empty, felt controlled. Farouk tried to hold on to whatever confidence he had left. He adjusted his posture, cleared his throat, and forced a small smile. "Sir, I think this is getting out of hand. There's no need to make this so serious. Sit." Al-Haji Karim didn't raise his voice. But this time, it felt heavier. Farouk slowly sat down, not because he wanted to, but because something in that tone made it clear. This was no longer his space to control. Al-Haji Karim walked to the table, picked up a thin file, and placed it gently in front of him. No drama, no anger, just quiet certainty. "You see, Farouk," he began calmly, "I prefer to understand a man before I deal with him." Farouk frowned slightly, confused. "I don't understand." "You will." That was all he said. Farouk opened the file. At first, his expression didn't change. Then it did. His eyes moved quickly across the pages. Numbers, documents, transactions, things he never expected anyone to know. Small details turned into big problems. Hidden debts, unreported income, questionable deals that could easily become legal issues if exposed. His fingers tightened around the papers. His throat went dry. "This," he whispered, barely able to form the words. "This is nothing serious." But even he didn't believe that. Al-Haji Karim watched him quietly, his face unreadable. "Of course," he said softly. "Then you won't mind if the right people take a closer look." The words hit harder than any shout. Farouk's face slowly lost its color. For the first time, fear showed. Real fear. He looked up, trying to recover, trying to say something, anything, but nothing came out right. Because now he understood. This wasn't just a father protecting his daughter. This was a man who had already done his homework. A man who didn't speak without knowing exactly what he was holding. Al-Haji Karim stepped closer, his voice still calm, but now carrying a quiet warning that filled the entire room. "If you come near my daughter again," he said slowly, "this goes to court." No shouting, no threats, just a clear line, and a promise behind it. Farouk swallowed hard, his mind racing, trying to find a way out of this situation. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. Because in that moment, he finally saw the truth. He hadn't just made a mistake. He had underestimated the wrong man. And now, there was a price for that. Farouk sat there, staring at the documents, trying to gather what little control he thought he had left. His confident mask was gone. The arrogance that had carried him so far was crumbling, replaced by something he hadn't expected, fear. I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said, his voice shaky now. "Zainab, sorry. Please let's fix this. I can make it right." He leaned forward, almost pleading, hoping she would soften, hoping she would return to the frightened woman he thought she still was. He tried to speak with authority, tried to promise, to manipulate, to remind her of the life she had before, but she wasn't that woman anymore. Zainab sat across from him, calm, composed, her hands folded on her lap. There were no tears, no trembling, no panic, just a quiet strength that Farouk couldn't ignore, even if he tried. She had changed. Everything about her had shifted in the hours, in the nights, in the choices she had made to survive. She looked at him, her eyes steady, her voice soft but unwavering. "I'm not coming back." The words hit him harder than any slap, any scream, any fight could have. The room seemed to shrink around him, and suddenly, he realized he wasn't in control. Not here. Not ever again. He opened his mouth, trying to speak, trying to regain something, anything, but no words worked. The apology felt hollow even to him. The lies, the threats, the charm, none of it could reach her now. She had a power he had never seen before, a strength built from pain, clarity, and the decision to protect herself. Zainab stood up slowly, every movement deliberate. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to threaten. Her presence alone made it clear. The game had changed. Farouk sat frozen, watching as everything he assumed about their relationship, about her, about himself, slipped away. He had spent so long thinking he held the upper hand, but now, the power was gone. It was hers. Completely. She walked past him, not looking back, carrying herself with a calm confidence that left no room for doubt. The man who thought he could control her, the man who thought fear could bend her, realized too late that he had lost. And in that quiet room, with the echo of her words still lingering, the power dynamic had completely reversed. Zainab was free, unshakable, untouchable, and Farouk was left with nothing but regret and the bitter taste of underestimation. After everything, the legal process began quietly but firmly. Farouk had no choice. Everything he had done, every hidden secret, every unethical move was now exposed. Lawyers moved carefully, building the case piece by piece, and Zainab watched it unfold with a calm clarity she never thought she'd feel. She didn't panic. She didn't cry. She acted. She made decisions. Every phone call, every meeting, every signature she signed reminded her of one thing. She was taking back control of her life. The fear that had haunted her nights was gone. In its place was strength. A strength born from survival, clarity, and the refusal to be anyone's victim again. Farouk tried to cling to his old life, to repair what he could, but it was too late. His reputation, once built on charm and arrogance, began crumbling quietly, unnoticed by the world but felt deeply by him. And then one day he simply disappeared. No calls, no confrontations. The man who thought he could bend Zainab to his will was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Zainab rebuilt her life, slowly at first, then faster with purpose. She invested in herself, in her dreams, and in the relationships that truly mattered. She rediscovered her voice, her confidence, her power. Each day felt like reclaiming a piece of the life she had almost lost. One evening, she stood in her father's compound, in the quiet courtyard, looking at the warm glow of the lanterns around her. The air was still, peaceful. She felt the calm that comes when you finally escape fear, when you finally choose yourself over anyone else's control. Her father's presence nearby was steady and reassuring, a reminder that some strength isn't loud, it's quiet, protective, unshakable. And as she breathed in that calm night, Zainab smiled softly to herself. The man who thought I had nowhere to go, never realized I was running toward power he could never touch. In that moment she wasn't just free. She was unstoppable. She was untouchable. And she knew, finally, that her life belonged to her. Completely.